Morning, I thought I had to make a video because I could not get all of this in when I was trying to talk about my mother's parents, Granddaddy Smith and Grandmother Smith. So I had to make a video because it's just too long to post. I talked a little bit about my granddaddy and how well I knew him when I was a child. And he even came to live with us for a while, introducing me to coffee. He was a jolly man, always smiling, always laughing. I like to think that I got my personality, a lot of my personality from him, and my mother, who are a lot alike, and the whole family. That whole side of the family is very much laughter and joy with a work ethic. So it's a pretty neat combination. But I learned joy from him. I never knew my grandmother. My mother was pregnant when my grandmother passed away. So I didn't know her. Although I have this strange connection to her that happened that I don't think you could classify it as anything else than a miracle. I mean, it was just really strange how this connection happened. So I didn't know much about my grandmother's story. My grandmother was basically an orphan. Her mother had passed away when she was a child baby, and her dad remarried, and they had a little girl together. He and his wife, I believe that's correct. And that child was the apple of their eye, but my grandmother was kind of lost in the shuffle back then. And so she wasn't given the nice new clothes and the beautiful things that the other daughter was given, and ended up living in different places. But mostly where she lived was with these two older ladies in the community that lived together. And they raised her along with extended family in the area. And they gave her the best life that they could give her. So we owe a debt of gratitude to those two ladies. So this is coming around to something. So when I was around 11 years old, I didn't know any of this story. I didn't know anything about my grandmother really, except who she was, and I never met her. I was around 11 years old. I used to ride my bike a lot, and I would stop by on at least one day a week. And it turned into 3 days a week. Stopping by a nursing home, and you know what 11-year-old boy does that? You could tell I was going to be a social worker, but I would just go visiting residents. And I enjoyed that, and I enjoyed hearing their stories. And so that was at a very young age. I was just very engaged with that. And that went on for a while. And about 3 or 4 months in, I connected more so with this one lady at the nursing home that I don't know why I was drawn to her. It was just a connection we had. And I would go see her almost every day after that. At least 3 days a week, more so if I could. She would always have a piece of candy. She would read me a Bible verse sometimes. But she was this wonderful lady. She was in her late 90s, well, mid 90s at that point. The relationship went on till she was 102, I believe, is when she passed away. Still completely with it until that time, until she passed away. But as I got to know her, it was about a couple of months in, and I told my mother that I'd made this connection with this older lady at the nursing home that I really enjoyed talking to. And I was telling mother all about her. And then mother said, "Well, what's her name?" And I said, "Maddie White, is her name." And mother said, "This can't be the same one." And I said, "What?" And she said, "Well, her mother, my grandmother, was raised by a lady named Maddie White, and another lady that lived there. And so mother was curious and came up to the nursing home and met her. And sure enough, that was the lady that raised or helped raise my grandmother. And when mother came in, and Maddie White didn't know the connection either. We just had a connection to each other. So when mother got up there, there was a big reunion of sorts of the lady that lived in her community when she was growing up and just happened to be at this particular nursing home and my connection with her. And so they hugged each other, and Maddie White could not believe, that that was my mother. And we called her Aunt Maddie White. That's what mother called her, and that's what I started calling her from then on. And that relationship continued. I went to, especially her birthdays. I remember there would be big celebrations at the nursing home for her birthday. But just almost too much to be a coincidence. It was just an amazing connection I had with her. So I thought that was really interesting. My mother's mother had a hard life, from a young age and always was hardworking, got married and worked hard out on a farm. They lived out in the country. And she was a hardworking woman. Her cooking was from scratch. And I've got a picture, I hope, of the bowl that I've got that was her mixing bowl that was handed down to my mother and handed down to me. So I've got that mixing bowl and it's still used because cakes can't taste better than when they come out from the batters in that bowl. I mean, that's just the batter. So that's my connection. Almost all of my cousins remember my grandmother, because they were alive. She was alive when they were young. So my sister remembers her. Most of my cousins that are older than me remember her, but I just had no idea who she was until much later and learned about her from my mother and from Aunt Mattie White. And what a wonderful person she was, and always smiling and always joyful, which had to be if she was with my grandfather. So I just wanted to quickly tell that story, that go along with the picture above, this post. And so I hope you have a chance to listen to it. And I'm very blessed to have had so many ancestors and great ancestors, that I grew up around. So Aunt Mattie White was just one of those people. So, all right, that's all I'm gonna say. And thank y'all. And I hope you have a wonderful Saturday. And I'm trying to figure out how to end this. So I'm just gonna press end, I guess. Okay. Love you y'all and have a great day.